start. When and why did you start Highland dancing?
So I started when I was 2 years old, and two of my sisters danced, and my brother did speed skating. And so I kind of just did both, and then I was allowed to choose which one I wanted to do. So I started when I was 2, and we did like a little summer school, and then we did a show in the park, and I went along to that and did my little dance, and there were no dancing shoes in my size, so mum had to make me a little pair of dancing shoes. And then yeah, and I did the dance, and there was a waterfall behind me in the park, and so I turned around to look at the waterfall and held my dress up so everyone in the audience could see my underwear. But yeah, so that I was 2 when I started, and then never looked back.
What is your first competitive memory?
So I started competing non-board. So here in New Zealand, we have, it's called New Zealand Academy style of dancing. So I started doing that, and we did a competition. It was an outdoor competition in a park as well. And I remember we used to learn the fling and the sword and the jig and the hornpipe first. So I did my jig. I think I was 5 or 6. And from memory, I think I did like 4 or 5 jigs and made a mistake in every single one. So yeah, that's my first memory. And there was a playground, and all the kids were playing on the playground, which had a big pirate ship, and I really wanted to play on it, but mum wouldn't let me because I had my brand new kilt. And I remember being really annoyed about that.
So obviously you've been a big inspiration to so many dancers, myself included. And I was just wondering, from a young dancer, who was that person for you? Who did you look up to?
I remember you made a Morgan B fan group on Facebook. Do you remember that?
Why?
So cute. Back in those days. It was a long time ago now. That would have been like 13 or 14 years ago now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Oh, God.
So cute. My biggest inspiration was Colleen Rintamaki. Like I had a huge obsession with her. And yeah, I just wanted to do everything that she did. And Colleen used to wear a clip in the back of her hair under her bun. And so I copied her, and I used to call it the Colleen clip. But even to this, like, not that I dance anymore, but like even to the last point that I ever put my hair in a bun, that the Colleen clip goes in. And now a lot of my kids wear the clip as well. And when I was 10, I was so obsessed with Colleen, and she won Worlds for the 9th time. And I followed, you know how the champions do the champion march around the arena? Well, that year they marched all the way into Dunoon I think it was to where the Queen's Hall is. And so I marched, like I literally followed them the whole way. Like I walked into Dunoon following Colleen. But yeah, I was obsessed.
Glad you were obsessed. So obsessed with her, like I was with you, so it makes me look less.
Maybe I probably would have made a fan group Facebook page too oh my goodness, if Facebook had been around, yeah, for sure.
Like over the years, did you develop any like superstitions or rituals that you had to do for competition beside the Colleen clip?
Beside the Colleen clip, the Colleen clip was a definite. And I also had a bun net that I had worn in a show that I travelled with called Spirit of the Dance when I was 9 here in New Zealand. And I wore that, like it lasted until I think I was about 18. And I wore it every time, and it was full of glitter, and it was like crusty solid. I wore that. And I always had porridge for breakfast. And probably the most superstitious thing was that Judy, my teacher, she had these special earrings that she wore and a necklace, and the necklace was a locket, and it had these little silver pigs in it. Like, yeah, I don't know what that was about, but she always wore it. And then at Worlds, she always wore it, and I always won. And then she lost them in 2010, and no, it must be 2011. And that was the year that I was 18, and that was the year that I didn't win for the first time. So we were like, you have to find these earrings and you have to find these pigs. And she did find them. And in 2013, when she found them again, that was the year that I won again. So I don't know.
Not a coincidence.
No, full. It was because of the earrings and the pigs.
Mm-hmm. How often did you have to travel out with the country to go to championships and competitions?
So we traveled a little bit, but not a lot. So we traveled sometimes to Australia, but not a huge amount. And I only went to Canadians once when I was 15. But other than that, it was mainly just Scotland because it was so much money. We didn't do a lot of other travel. So yeah, just not that much.
No. So what age did you start traveling to Scotland, and like how did the competitions in Scotland differ to the competitions in New Zealand?
So the first time I traveled overseas was when I was 8, and we went to Australia first, and we went to a competition called Highland Games, and that was my first ever SOBHD competition, and the first time I had done a tulloch with anyone else apart from myself. So I ruined the whole dance. I thought I had done a great job, but I ruined the whole dance, and I came off and they had to redance it. That's how badly I'd done. And then we went to a championship the weekend after, and then we went to Scotland a couple of months later. So the first time I went to Scotland was when I was 8, and they were like the first SOB comps I'd done, and we didn't even have competitions in New Zealand at that point for SOB. So yeah, they were bigger than anything I'd done. Yeah, they were just so different because I wasn't used to competitions in New Zealand at that point.
Yeah. How was the weather difference when you were dancing at outdoor competitions compared to, because I know, well, New Zealand and Australia are hot places. So when you were out at games and stuff, was it like hard to the climate change?
Not really. New Zealand's got very similar, much more similar weather to Scotland than Australia has. We do have a warmer summer, but otherwise it's pretty similar. And we didn't really have any outdoor competitions. Well, we didn't have any competitions here for starters when I was younger. And then as we got more and more, they were always indoors. We didn't have any outdoor ones. So that was probably, the biggest difference is that you guys have outdoor comps and you sort of dance rain or shine, I guess. But I got used to it after a while, after going so many years in a row.
Yeah. Well, you were very successful at the World Championships, I think 7 times World Champion, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Can you give us an insight into how you felt like every single time coming back?
So probably the 2 most memorable times for me was the first time when I was 12 and the last time when I was 20. So the first time when I was 12, we were aiming for top 6. That was the plan. But in my head, I was like, no, I'm aiming for first. And I remember Judy said to me, I was really nervous when I qualified the Saturday, and Judy said to me, "It's fine, Morgan. It's only 4 more championship dances. You do them every day." And I turned to her and I said, "No, Judy, I've got 5 more dances to do," because I had to do the champions fling because I was planning on winning. But yeah, that time was really special because it was a first and it was such a big deal being 12. And the thing that just made it even better was that I won it next to Colleen, because that was the last time that she won. She came back, and so I was so stoked to be dancing next to Colleen. And then the last time was probably the most special time because I had won every year up until I was 18. So the last year I won was 17, and then when I was 18 and 19, those were the years that I didn't win. And that was probably the best thing that could happen to me, because it made me realize how badly I wanted to win that world title. And it made me really want it, and it made me work a lot harder than I worked before. So winning it when I was 20 was really special because I wanted it so badly. Yeah, and I remember just bursting into tears. And when I was 12, Judy played We Are the Champions when we got back to Hunter's Key, and then she never played it again when I won, like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. She never played it again, but then when I won it at 20, she did. So it was like, it was even more special that that happened. So yeah, those were the two most special times.
Yeah, it was kind of like finishing your career off how you started at Cowell as well.
Yeah, and it was always my goal to win the adults. So
what back each year and like winning it, make it more nerve-wracking for you, like going into the Worlds, or did it kind of calm you down because you knew you'd already won it?
More nervous because it was pressure, and I don't know if it was pressure that I'd put on myself or pressure. No, it was probably pressure that I put on myself because I had won, so there was this pressure to win again. And when you're at the top, unless you win again, the only direction you can go is down. And every single person that was competing was out there to beat me. Mm-hmm. That was their goal. So yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, and I felt a lot of pressure on myself. But I didn't really, when I was younger, I didn't really let the nerves get to me, but when I was older, I really did. Like, I would just cry and get really, really nervous.
So leading up to Worlds, what was a typical day like practicing for yourself?
So in New Zealand, when I was younger, I would practice a lot at home, and my mum would help a lot. So she would take notes, and she would take videos, and she would come to all my lessons. And when I got older, I would do quite a lot of practicing before school. Mm-hmm. And Judy used to come to my house like twice a week at like 6 a.m. and we'd do a lesson. And then we made an agreement with my school that on the days that I had a particular class after lunch, I would leave school at lunchtime and go to the studio and do a private lesson with Judy, and then go back to school. So that was like twice a week at high school, and then I'd have class lessons probably twice a week, and then practice by myself as well. And then in Scotland, that was usually, we were aiming to be prepared by then, and it was just putting icing on the cake. So we would do just in the mornings, usually every day, for probably like 45 minutes maybe. And the goal was that if I could do all 4 of my championship dances in 30 minutes at a really good standard, then that was our goal. So that was what we used to aim to do in Scotland. Yeah.
Wow. Hard.
No, it was intense. Yeah.
Working that hard, like any athlete was going to kind of face obstacles and injuries and things like that. Did you have any? And if so, how did you get over them?
I didn't have injuries as such. I never had like an actual injury. I had sore legs, and I had the severs in the heel, the growth plates that a lot of kids get. And I had some stress fractures in my feet. I had shin splints. I had all of those things, but I never had an actual injury. So yeah, we were sort of taught to be tough and just sort of push through it. But definitely as I got older, I learned to take care of my body more. So I'd walk after class to get rid of lactic acid, and we used to do hot and cold. I don't know if you guys have done that. So the moment we landed in Scotland, we'd go to Tesco and buy 2 rubbish bins, like big plastic bins, and we'd fill one with ice every day and fill one with hot water, and swap my legs around just to keep them healthy.
I remember I remember being came to visit you were in Stirling and you were doing that. You were going between the both buckets. I remember because I was like, Mum, I
Yeah.
have to do that because Morgan.
Does it funny?
So, like moving away from competitions, your best non-competitive memory.
I really loved doing the tattoo because it was the first time in my life that I had done something that was not competitive. Because being in New Zealand, you guys are really lucky overseas that you have so many other dancers your age. So you guys can do choreographies and you can do shows and you can do flings and things and you can do all of those amazing events. But I hadn't really done anything like that. So it had always been just about training and winning. So doing the tattoo for me was the first time that I had done something with a group of other girls, and I didn't have to be the best dancer, and it didn't matter. So that was really awesome for me. That was one of my best memories. And 2 years ago, I took my students over to the competition in Disneyland, and that was very cool. We will definitely have to do that again. That was such a good experience.
The World Champions Troop. It's one of my all-time favorite dances, and I just wanted to know how it was learning with David being in Scotland and Fiona in Canada and yourself in New Zealand.
So that was, what year was that, like 2009? I don't really think Facebook was a huge thing then, or it might have just been sort of taking off. So we couldn't just send each other videos like everyone does now just to learn it. So I remember that they wrote it. Heather Jolly choreographed it, and she wrote the dance out and sent it to Judy, and then Judy tried to teach it to me. And I remember one of the funny things was a movement had a shuffle ball change in it. And I don't know what we were thinking, but we thought like a chanteuse shuffle.
Yeah.
So we were trying to like work out how to do a chanteuse shuffle and a ball change all in one movement. And we were like, then we realized it was a hornpipe shuffle. I know. And then we got there and we had about 2 or 3 days to learn it, I think. And because I hadn't really done choreography before, I did find it quite challenging. But I was lucky to stay with Brianna Watt, who had learnt the dance in my spot when they were choreographing it. So we were able to do lots of practice at her house to learn it. Yeah, it was lots of fun though. It was such a fun dance to do. It's really cool because some other people have redone it. Like I think David did it with Robin and I don't know who the third was. It Anthea?
Monday,
yeah. Yeah, they did it. And I emailed Heather a couple of years ago because I had 3 dancers who had won championships that year, and I asked if we could redo it. So they learned it as well. So we had in one of our end of year shows, 3 of my dancers performed it too. So it was really cool.
You were obviously a very successful dancer. No one can say otherwise. But you've also got a very successful school, and I was just wondering how did you achieve that, and what made you want to become a dance teacher?
I think I always wanted to teach, and I had a real I really wanted to produce a school where there was like a team feeling and like uniforms, because I was always sort of on my own. I never had that, so I really wanted to create that sort of atmosphere for dancers. And yeah, and there's not a lot of dance schools in New Zealand, so it was kind of the point of I need to continue this to grow Highland dancing in New Zealand. So Judy gifted me 12 of her pre-premier dancers, because she was sort of at that point wanting to take a step down from teaching and just focus on her premier girls. So I took on 12 dancers and then grew the school from there. And yeah, I love it. I love teaching, and it's a passion of mine to teach the kids. So I did teach acro for a few years. That was mainly, it started because 2 of my nieces really wanted to do it after watching Dance Mums on TV. And I ended up having 100 students doing acro. It was only recreational. We didn't do any competitions. But I no longer teach that. I just teach Highland again now.
When you went back to Cowell and you received the honorary patron, how did that feel?
That was such a mix, like it was so surprising, and like I was so honored. I had no idea that was going to happen. So no, they invited me to give the awards, and I was so honored for that, and I was really nervous as well. Like I was so nervous to get back up on that stage, and yeah, and then they gave me that life patronage award, and I was so shocked. I had no idea that was coming, so it was really cool. It was a really cool moment.
To finish up, you obviously wore the blue Erskine with the black jacket, and it's kind of iconic. Like everyone always thinks Morgan Bamford when they see that. What made you stick with that same color and tartan the whole way through?
So it's a funny story how it actually happened to start with. So Judy and my mum told me that I could pick whatever tartan I wanted out of the tartan box. So Judy had this box full of tartan samples, and they said you can pick any tartan you like, but they had already picked that one, and because they liked it. I think they may have picked two, but definitely that one, and they'd put it literally right on the top. And I was like 4 or 5, and I was like, oh, I like this one. So that's how I picked that one. And then I don't know, like it wasn't really an option to change it at that time. I think maybe being in New Zealand, people didn't change kilts as often, and we had to order them from overseas. So it's not like for you guys where you can just sort of sell one and buy a new one, and there's so many dances around that there's kilts going everywhere. So I guess I just sort of wore the same one for a while, and then once I had worn in it a few times, it was like, well, don't change it now. It's probably, that would be one of my biggest superstitions as well. Like, definitely don't change the kilt colour, for sure. I used to change my aboyne up a lot. That was the one thing that I would change. So I had a few different aboyne outfits.
So I opened up some questions online on Facebook.
Yeah.
And we got a couple of replies of what people wanted to ask you. So I'll just go ahead and ask you these. So Sky McLeod asked, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So I had to think about this when you sent the questions through, and then there were 3 things. The first one was that judges and examiners are like, they're humans as well. I used to be so scared of them. And exams, I was the worst. Like, any examiner who has ever examined me as a young child will tell you, like, I used to cry through the entire thing. Like, I hated it. And now, as an adult and as a judge, I realized that actually they're normal people, and you don't need to be scared of them when you're dancing in front of them. The second one was to eat when you dance. So I don't know about you, but when I danced, I could not eat anything for the whole day. Like, mum had to force breakfast down my throat, and then I wouldn't eat anything apart from Red Bull. Then that was it. And as I got older, and you're using so much energy and so many muscles, I learned that you have to eat. So that's one big thing that I really drum into my dancers, my championship dancers, my students, that they have to eat something. I don't care if it's like almonds or carrots or yogurt or whatever, just eat something between your dances. And the last one was not taking for granted what people did for me, or what people do for you when you dance, because I don't think as a child you really understand the concept of money, and it's not until I've become an adult and I have to pay my own bills that I've realised how much money my parents spent on me to do what I wanted to do, and how much work they had to put in and how much time they had to sacrifice. And Judy's the same. So yeah, so if I could tell my younger self to appreciate it more, I probably would.
So then Sinead Scobie asked, how did you keep yourself motivated throughout the years, having less competition than like people in Scotland or people in America?
I think it was because I was so competitive and I had like this very clear goal of what I wanted to do. So like I had to go and I had to win, and that was what was going to happen no matter what. So I think that kept me motivated. And also the fear of the unknown, maybe a little bit, because there were there were a few competitions, but I couldn't see what my main competitors were doing or how they were dancing or what they were doing. So I couldn't sort of get complacent. I had to keep working and just get better and better and more, how do I say this? Get better than myself rather than focusing on what other people were doing.
So Emma, I think it's right. I think that's how you pronounce it. What advice would you give to dancers and teachers?
I had to think a little bit about this one as well. But I think the biggest thing that I've noticed from being a dancer, but also from being a teacher and seeing it from a different perspective, watching my students and their parents, is that people just need to focus on being their best, not being better than other people. Because I think a lot of the time we focus on, you know, so and so is practicing every day, so and so just did that leap really nice, so and so is, you know, really fit, and you need to, just all these things, and we're just always comparing ourselves to others. And I think we just need to compare ourselves to who we were yesterday and always try and be better than ourselves rather than other people. That's with like teachers and with our school and with our students and parents as well a lot of the time. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, is just to try and be better than yourself.
Yeah, it's a good piece of advice. So Emma asked, what is your favorite competitive memory?
Well, apart from winning Worlds, I loved Bridge of Allen Highland Games. It was my favourite Highland Games, and every time it didn't clash with a championship, I had to do that one because I loved all the rides after. That was the reason I liked going. This is not a favourite memory. This is just a funny memory. At Tartan Highland Games, I was doing a dance once, and I saw someone like doing streaking across the field, so like running naked across the field. And I was dancing, and then I came off, and I remember saying to my mum, "Oh my God, Mum, there was a streaker on the field over there." She was like, "Why were you not focusing on your dance? What were you doing looking over on the field?" So that was funny. And one of my very favourite there's a lot of memories with this, is I used to love the Kaylee dancing at Commonwealth. I don't know, you probably would have been quite young when they did that, but
I remember
that was
a couple of years of me going to Commonwealth and doing it, but they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, no, which is a shame, because that was such a cool thing to do, and it just like lightened the atmosphere, and you sort of forgot about your nerves for the results, and everyone it was just fun. Like, I really, really loved that. And of course, making all the friends. I've got friends all over the world that I would never have had. And one other funny story was over in Musselburgh for the British Open and the British Overseas. They used to do it in a different hall. I can't remember the name of it. You probably would have been quite young then as well. Did you dance in that other place?
The Brunson Theatre.
Yeah, that one. There you go. Well done. And I remember we were driving home, and it was a really foggy, like it was to the point that you couldn't see in front of you. So we were driving really slow. And it was years ago when like the Navman GPS they were really new. And so we were all trying to work it, and we must have put it on walking rather than on driving, because it took us like the walkway along like the waterfront and or the river or where, I don't know, is there a beach in Musselburgh? Is there? I don't know. Anyway, along a walkway by water, and we didn't realize that we were on it until we like almost banged into a bench seat, and then we were like, oh, this is not the road.
Brogan Martin asks, what is your favourite Highland dance and why?
My favourite Highland dance was probably the sword, which is, it sounds ridiculous, but I remember watching a speech by Colleen when I was super obsessed with her. They came out to New Zealand for Enjoy, and she did a speech about like making negatives into positives. So like if she was the only one on stage because someone else had walked off, take that from negative and turn it into positive, about how the judge is only watching you, or how when it was raining, how she needed to turn that into a positive rather than a negative. And yeah, one of the big things for me was turning the negative of, oh my gosh, I could kick the sword, to I could also not kick the sword, you know, and if I don't kick the sword, then I'm already in an advantage to the people who have. So I think that was one reason I liked it. And also because my style of dance was stronger rather than, you know, pointy and balletic, I think the sword suited my style as well. And non-Highland loved the jig. Like I loved just playing a character. That was so much fun. Yeah.
The last question is, I'm pretty sure you'll find this one a bit funny. Katie Resima has asked, who's your favourite student?
Oh my goodness. So we were doing a Zoom, we were doing a private, I think it was yesterday, a lesson, and she was joking about maybe she should ask a question on your Facebook post, and we were laughing about how she should ask who my favourite student was. So that's really funny. But do you know what, when you sent me through the questions, I was like laughing about it, and then I thought, actually, this is quite a good question, because I think teachers, we don't have favourite students, like that's not a thing. But I think sometimes people and students think that we prefer the more talented dancers, which is really not the case. For me, like any dancer who arrives on time, tries their best, actually wants to be there. They're not there because somebody else wants them to be there, and they always give of their best, and they do practice, and they're polite, and they try their hardest at comps. They're the ones that I enjoy teaching the most, and they don't have to, they could have two left feet for all I care. As long as a dancer really tries, then yeah, I think most teachers would agree. And I think that's really nice advice for maybe a dancer who isn't as talented, and they know that they're not maybe as talented, that doesn't make us enjoy teaching you any less, because as long as you try hard, then yeah, we love teaching you. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Turned a funny one into a serious one there.
it's a serious one. I'm good at that. Make everything serious.
Well, that's all the questions. I just want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on.